Hello. Welcome back to Broyhill on Aviation Leadership. This episode is the first of 15 in which we will discuss individual leadership traits that are covered in further detail in this book. Each one of these units will feature the same format. We'll define the trait, we'll expand the definition into perhaps a business context, I'll present some of the statistics that were uncovered when I did the research for this book, and then I'll present a personal anecdote from my somewhat checkered past, some of which are instructive, others of which are amusing, a few of which are downright embarrassing. And you're just going to have to tune in for the whole series to find out which one is which. So, without any further ado, let's get started. This unit is on the trait of integrity. Integrity was the #1 ranked trait and the #1 rated trait by the respondents in the survey. I'll explain the difference between those two when we get to the stat slide here in a few minutes. So how would we define integrity? Merriam-Webster would give you 3 definitions, all of which you can see here. However, it's definition #1, the one at the top that's probably most applicable in a leadership context. Firm adherence to a code of especially moral or artistic values. In a word, incorruptibility. Sometimes, when the subject of integrity is discussed in conversation, this quote, which has been misattributed to C.S. Lewis, gets thrown into the conversation. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Now, while that might adequately capture what personal integrity could be about, it probably doesn't capture the complexity of integrity in a leadership context. What does integrity look like in a leadership context? In 2007, Polanski and Yamarino, 2 researchers, and I apologize for mispronouncing their names, and I probably did, published an excellent journal article on the subject of leadership and integrity, clearing up the conceptual confusion, they called it. You can see the citation there at the bottom of the page. After a thorough review of scholarly literature, they broke integrity from a leadership perspective down in the words you see here. It's about wholeness. It's about authenticity. It's about consistency in words and actions. It's about consistency in adversity, in morality, and ethics. It can often be defined as trustworthiness, honesty, justness, openness, and even compassion. And I think if we reflect upon the way we've seen integrity manifested by leaders that we've worked with and for, it kind of breaks down to this sort of thing. Okay, this isn't a flashback. You're not back in high school stats class, I promise. We have to do a little stats work here, folks. A little bit for each one of the traits. I promise I'll keep it short, but I think you'll find it's worthwhile. So here we have what the research revealed about the trait of integrity. I summarized integrity with a little catchphrase. I could trust what my leader says. And you can see that people rated it high and they ranked it high. So what's the difference between the two? I asked people to rate each trait on a scale of 1 to 7. And you can see that the leaders, the followers, the overall means, all pretty high, 6.56. People thought it was very, very important. But I also asked people to rank their top 3 traits, just to give me their top 3. Integrity was #1 in that process also. So both leaders and followers think integrity is pretty darn important. So I promised you an anecdote. In fact, I've got 2 of them for you. And they're not so much about the big decisions you make from an integrity perspective as they are about being tested. Sometimes the tests are small and they help you to build the big muscles you need to make the bigger decisions. So a long time ago, I was working for a charter company in New York. We were flying a sortie taking passengers from Long Island down to Baton Rouge. It was right after Hurricane Katrina and all the devastation had been caused down there. We landed at the Baton Rouge airport. Our passengers weren't going to be gone for very long. I don't remember why they were there. And the guy I was with and I decided we knew we couldn't leave the FBO, so we needed to find something to eat. Well, lo and behold, all around the FBO, stacked along every wall you could see, there were all of these pre-prepared meals, the ones you can get in the grocery store now. Not frozen or refrigerator or anything, the ones you could buy off the shelves that, are easy to store. So we asked the guy behind the desk at the FBO, hey, can we have a couple of these pre-prepared meals? And he went, yes, please, eat as many as you want. We're trying to get them out of here. So we each selected one and we went back to the break room and we ate it. Not too long after that, our passengers returned, got back on the jet, we headed back to Long Island. As we're letting down into the terminal area for the approach, the guy I'm flying with pulls his wallet out, and then out of his wallet, he removes one of these things that looks like a cash receipt you see like in a diner or a restaurant. And I can tell that the's a lot of them in there. And he goes, I always carry these for situations just like this. Just because you got a free meal doesn't mean the company doesn't owe you one. You should put $25 or $30 on this and claim it as an expense. And I remember going, wow, I don't know what my integrity is worth, but I bet it's worth more than $25 or $30. You know, at that particular time, I was going through some extreme financial distress, and 25 or 30 extra dollars would have been welcome in the household budget, but just couldn't do it. Couldn't turn in the receipt. So another incident that was very similar happened to me. I was coming back from a contract trip that I had flown for a major management company. The guy I was flying with lived along the New Jersey Turnpike, and I was driving up from Delaware, so I picked him up, took him up there. We flew the trip. Then when we landed, came down again, I dropped him off. Now on the way back, he asked me to pull into an Applebee's. And I said, sure, I can pull into an Applebee's. So I didn't know what he was going to do, but he goes in and he comes out with an Applebee's gift card. And he gets back in the car and says, see what this card says? It says eating good in the neighborhood. And when I don't get to claim a meal, I go ahead and ask the company to reimburse me for it, and I buy one of these and I take my family out for dinner. After all, they owe me, the $25 for the meal. So he invited me to go do the same thing. I refused, and I wasn't called back on another trip, and we spent the rest of the drive in silence. So sometimes when it comes to things like integrity, it's the small muscles we exercise that get us ready to make the larger decisions. And oftentimes, it's making the right decision even when nobody's watching. Hey, thank you very much for joining us for this episode about integrity. Please check out the other episodes in the Traits series as they become available, and my previous videos, including the introduction as well as the background to the series. If you'd like to get more detail on the things we've discussed today, you can do so in the book, Business Aviation Leadership from the Traits to the Trenches, that's available through online retailers and also available through my website, www.chrisbroyhillbooks.com. Please help a fellow out. Hit the subscribe button down there at the bottom when you can, and come back and see us. There'll be more. Tailwinds.